Welcome back to Old School Eats. I'm Derek Old School Fournier, and this video is going to be about ribs. It's actually going to be two parts because, as I have noticed, long videos aren't as well appreciated on YouTube. I tend to be a long video guy, I'm a long book guy, I'm a long movie guy, but I get it. So I've got a set of ribs that I'm going to get broken down. Don't do a lot with regards to that here, but I'll show you what that looks like, and then I'm going to cook them a couple of different ways across these two videos, but it's going to be all about ribs and eating for home. My preference for ribs are St. Louis ribs. I happen to think that they're meatier. I know a lot of people love baby backs, and a lot of people do old traditional spares. I'll probably do videos on each of those to try and talk about the highs and lows and the relative advantages and disadvantages to each. But I find that my family likes the St. Louis ribs the best. Now, I typically source my St. Louis ribs from Costco, like most of my meat. Easy, convenient 3-pack. And when I break those down, you'll see that I don't do a whole lot of breaking down because this isn't for competition. This is for just home eating. So the one thing that will be different is I will talk about the 3-2-1 method, how it's fallen out of favor, and how I cook ribs as well. All right, we've got our St. Louis ribs here. Probably off camera here, but the Costco pack comes with 3, and almost always you end up with at least one that's a little bit thicker here in the butt end. You can kind of see that right here. I'll throw it in the B-roll as well, which is fine. They're fantastic ribs. I'll actually put them here so you can see all of them. In this particular package, these two are very similar. And then this guy is a little bit on the thin side, which is fine. So I'm gonna prep all 3 of these racks. I'm actually gonna do, in this video, just these 2. I'll cook the way I normally do my ribs. And I'm gonna prep this one because I'm gonna do a deep fried ribs video too, where I'm gonna do half the rack that I've smoked first, and I'm gonna do the other half where I haven't to show the differences. So just gonna go ahead and trim those up one at a time. I'll probably do the thin one first. You guys have probably seen plenty of rib trim video before. Again, since this isn't competition for a bunch of reasons, most notably because I've never competed, so I can't really come here and tell you what I think should happen in a competition given the fact that I've never done that. I don't trim a lot, and especially fat on the back. I want that fat to be here. I will, kind of square up the end a little bit, and I will take off the membrane. I am an anti-membrane guy, probably due to when I got into barbecue. I know that right now there's a lot of discussion about just scoring it, and if you watched my beef rib video, which I hope you did, if you didn't, check that out. You know that with beef ribs, it's sort of a different thing. You need that membrane back there in order to hold the ribs together. For pork ribs, that's not the case. Ooh, I got lucky on this one. Anyone who's done this before knows. Sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes that's a pain in the ass, and sometimes it's not. So, again, because this is going to go into another video, I'm just going to find the bones and go about halfway down the rack. So, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I go about right here. All right. And really, for those, for the deep fried ribs, they get cooked as individuals. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these guys all trimmed up. I've got it here. Now, as you get down towards the end of the rib rack, obviously you get smaller ribs. In fact, this is just like riblets. You guys have probably seen them. I would suspect you have. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim all the way down so that I can pull out representative ribs for that other video. Down here, there's no bone. I'll just throw that on the cooker, and that'll be sort of what they call a pitmaster treat. Here we have one of the big, thicker ribs, which is what's going to be part of the actual show today, or the video today. There's a little bit of fat here, but I don't mind that. As you get on here, it's already pretty squared off. It is thinner, which means that's going to cook faster. What you'll see a lot of people do is kind of trim these off here. Again, since I'm cooking for home, I'm not going to do that. This end piece, I will, because it's just so thin. I'll just take that across. And of course, I'll hit that cartilage, which will annoy me. And that'll go on with the little Pitmaster treat. On the back, there's sometimes a piece here. People call it the skirt or the apron. Some people get really fastidious about it. I do not. But I will trim it a bit. And I will remove the membrane. I use this spoon tactic. I don't know where I learned it from. Myron actually had these almost pliers that he sells and he uses. It's not that he just sells them. His team actually use them as well. And they work pretty well. I have misplaced mine, so I'm just doing it the old brute force way, and not particularly well on this rack. So that's all right. Maybe that'll make you guys feel better than I felt the first time I tried to do it. And it didn't come off like magic, the way the person on the video showed it. And I felt incompetent and stupid, which some might still assert I am at times. But the reality is, you get that off. This fat down here doesn't bother me. A little bit of a shiner, I guess, this bone poking through. But for the way I cook, it's not going to be a big deal. A little straggler here. That'll go off. And this rack is good to go. So I'll get the other rack ready, and then we'll get to seasoning. All right, so we're going to season up these ribs. I'm using my standard for ribs anyway, and also for pulled pork, a combination of Kosmos Q rubs, Honey Killer Bee. Then I go with the Hot Dirty Bird, and then Dirty Bird. So I'm just going to season these up. I don't use a binder. The sweat off the meat is sufficient, in my opinion. Plus, I'm going to let these sit in the refrigerator for a little while rather than out. I know that there's a lot of discussion about that everywhere. Everyone's got their own preferences and opinions. Maybe Steve well, he does mostly brisket. I'm sure Jeremy Yoder may have some sort of an opinion on this, but my experience has been I prefer this model for a couple reasons, not the least of which being it's not as messy. I don't think it's necessary. Now I'm putting on the Hot Dirty Bird. Just a light coat on the backside, the bone side. You don't have to get that heavy on the bone side, obviously. A lot of people have gotten to the point where they don't even do the bone side. My OCD will not allow that to happen. These two little pieces over here are just little skirt trims. They'll be a snack for me while I'm cooking. A little hit of Dirty Bird. That's a little sweeter as opposed to the heat for the Hot Dirty Bird, somewhat predictably by the name. Turn these guys over. Oop. That's the only thing I always got to watch for. Again, you don't rub these. People have kind of beaten that dead horse. But you do pat them in. And if you use a binder, you'll have less kind of throw off from that than I do. But again, I don't see the advantage of the binder. Love to know your opinion. If you're a binder fanatic, love to know why. What your rationale is. This honey layer is really just a light layer. When we get into the cook, for me, I do wrap. We'll talk about that a little more out there in the cook space. I don't do the traditional 3-2-1, though I started that way, the same way, hell, most everybody did. Everyone's pretending they didn't. But unless you were an old school cook, where you probably cooked unwrapped, raw heat all the way through, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can make some awesome ribs that way. And in fact, if I'm doing full spares quite often, that's what I prefer. But a lot of us started with that 3-2-1 method. Now, it wasn't foolproof, and anyone who used it probably learned that the first time they cooked, right? You ended up overcooking things. So you had to figure out your cooker, and that's what I've done. But I do essentially have a phase that is uncovered to get a bunch of smoke, or as much smoke as I can get. Then I wrap, and you'll see that I wrap with brown sugar, and I wrap with butter and a little bit of honey. Sometimes agave, but I use honey most of the time. Take that time, braise it, and then I'll pull them out towards the end, and then I'll set the sauce at the end. Unless I'm going to go ahead and put a whole rack in to freeze. But we'll cover that when we get to that point. These are now seasoned up. I'm gonna rack them, put them in the fridge, let them set up for a while, and then I'll get the smoker going. All right, we're out at the Meat Palace. I've got my Bark 2400 up to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. If any of you are using Myron Mixon Bark cookers right now, and I wonder, I wish I could remember the gentleman's name. He just did a great review on the new Gen 3s, which are paired with Smokin' Brothers. The Mixon app has been having problems for me, but the Pits and Spits app, they're all made by the same company. It looks like Roanoke Electronic Controls, was a great workaround. So a big shout out to the team that let me know that. I'm sure they'll get it fixed up, but I'm out here at the cooker. It's at 250, I got it stabilized. Little side note, if you're a pellet cooker, pellet grill user, I guess is the right way to say it. I was using some Jealous Devil pellets. They're stored in a cardboard box. I had gotten lazy and left that cardboard box out here in the Meat Palace, and it had received some moisture. I didn't realize it, and I went and poured it into my hopper, and that's a no-no for pellets. So I drained the hopper, cleared everything out, and went with, I'm actually using some Knotty Wood plum pellets today. But got that all rectified, 250, actual temperature's 250. I got the ribs over here, they're looking fantastic. They've tacked up in the fridge. Now I'm gonna get this guy open. Now I'll get these guys on here, plump them up a little bit. Got them plumped up, got them set on the cooker. That's gonna go back in, 250, and let her ride. We're gonna use that 250 for about, almost seamless, look at that. So we're gonna go about 250 for roughly 3 hours. This is the 3 of the 3-2-1. Now, I'm not sticking to the 3-2-1, because if you do 3-2-1, like I said, you end up with mushy, totally overcooked ribs. But I do like that first 3 hours or so at 250. So I'm gonna keep an eye on them. I'm gonna come out after about the first hour and a half and check them. You don't want them to dry out. If you do spritz, you can spritz with anything you want. Water, apple cider vinegar, apple juice. People use everything, folks. I typically will use apple cider vinegar if I need to. We're very humid here. You guys can't see it. I had to clean all the pollen off everything. Here in Florida it's a mess. But that humidity will keep things going. We'll check it after those 3 hours, or we'll check it at an hour and a half and we'll keep going. And then we'll prepare to wrap, and I'll show you all those steps. We're around an hour 2. I'm gonna take a look at the ribs. I threw the singles on there for the other video that we'll have on deep fried ribs. But for this video, these are the ones we're looking at. They're looking good. I am gonna give a little bit of a spritz with some water. And a little dry. No problem there. And I'm just using water today, not apple juice or apple cider vinegar. Normally I'd use apple cider vinegar, but that's fine. Give those guys a nice little spritz. We're gonna put them back in there. Get things start to break down a little bit. It smells fantastic. These guys are fine up here. I might as well give them a little spray while I'm in. We're gonna go about another hour at 250. Then after that hour, we're gonna do our wrap process where I use butter, brown sugar, and honey. And I'll show you all that in a few minutes. Looking good, smelling good. Yeah, those look fantastic. All right, so I'm gonna get these off and I'm gonna get them inside and get them wrapped up. I'll get you another video on that, and I'm gonna taste these guys. And I'm gonna put those guys away for another video. These are on here for 3 hours at 250. Spritzed twice. I'll actually give them one more quick spritz. As I understand it, if you were doing competition-y stuff, first of all, you would have trimmed it differently, like you wouldn't have these big bulgy areas, but you also would wipe these areas down, whereas I don't. All right, we're back inside. I've got my ribs over here and my little Pitmaster treats. Didn't didn't show you a whole lot outside about bend, and one of the things we talk about with ribs is when they're done, they'll have this bend test. You'll see right now we got a decent bend on these ribs, but they're still holding everything together. If you look on the back side, and I'll put them over here so you can see them a little better, a little bit of this, I guess this is marrow popping out. I don't care, again, if you're worried about this from a display perspective. For competition, I've seen people go through here and knock this off. I'm not that worried about it. So what I'm gonna do is my standard deal. I have to go get the butter. Now, when I started doing this, everybody was using squeeze butter or parquet. As you may have picked up, my wife has issues with some of these less than healthy things. And so I try not to get into that world. So I always used butter, and I foolishly thought that it was an issue of maybe burning point or something like heat issues that made them do that. Because I figured the more processed, the higher the heat resistance was. So I went out and looked at it online, and apparently no, butter is actually better. I'm a fan of using butter. This is Kerrygold because I'm a butter snob, but I've got light brown sugar, butter, and then honey. And then we're gonna go meat side down with rib 1, and then we're gonna repeat this process on the back. Now, I know a lot of folks will also put some more rub here. I don't. I rub relatively heavily, liberally maybe is a better word. When I put it on to begin with, you guys saw that in the video. So I don't have the feeling I need to do that. Now, if I were gonna do something a little extra special, one of the things Myron teaches in his class is you can come back afterwards when you're preparing, and you can grind up your rub in like a spice grinder so that it's much smaller, almost like pulverize it. And then you can give a powder dusting. And you can do that on the meat edge as well. And to be honest, I think it's freaking brilliant. So now we got that package, it's nice. I want meat side down when I go back on the cooker. So meat side is on the bottom right now. I can flip that around. This package is nice and tight. It's double wrapped in heavy duty aluminum foil. And we'll put it back on the cooker. We're gonna put it on there for about an hour, then we're gonna check for bone pullback. And I'm just gonna do the same thing with rack 2. I probably could have gloved up the other hand and done better with the brown sugar. The other point with regards to brown sugar is I know some people are pretty dogmatic about whether you use light or brown. I'm not. I've used both. To be honest, I haven't noticed an appreciable difference in using the two. I'm sure someone with a more refined palate than I could find a difference. But really what this whole thing does is, combined with the fat that's going to continue to render out of these ribs, which is fantastic, and the butter, and some people will put like some apple juice in here as well. I have not found a need to add additional moisture. My experience has been that the fat from the ribs combined with the butter gives me plenty of sort of braising liquid in this packet. And you'll see when we pull this out, there's gonna be a pretty significant amount of liquid in here. And you can use that to create a sauce if you want. In fact, I often do. You guys have already heard me rail against saucing barbecue. Again, I know that is very much a matter of preference. It's like Ford versus Chevy, I guess. I am typically a more dry barbecue guy when it comes to sauces. But when we're done with this, in these packets, there's gonna be a ton of incredible flavor that you can put out into a pan, cook down, add to barbecue sauce. That's what I do with my brisket sauce as well. I'll use a hickory sauce base, and then jus, a little bit extra pepper, maybe some hot sauce, and create a more rich brisket sauce. I oftentimes will do the same thing with ribs. But you'll see what we do when we're done. These are now packaged up, meat side down. We'll put those back on the cooker for another hour and check it. These guys just came off. They're cooked enough to eat for sure. I tempt them. Flavor's fantastic. And that combination of rubs is beyond good. So we're gonna get these back on the cooker and get them all the way done. Let's see if we get a decent view of this. Pull those out. Finally gotten my hands to the point where I can handle this kind of stuff. Because gloving up all the time is a pain in the backside. You see some of the bone pull back there, which is great. You see all the juice we were talking about. I want a little bit more bone pull back than that. You still got a little ways to go. Seal them back up. These are about the same size rack, so I'm not really that concerned about there being much difference rack to rack. It does, however, look like I managed to somehow split the bottom, which is not what I wanted. We'll do that. Let's try and limit the drip of that juice that we've got in there. That's our braising liquid. We don't want to lose that. All right, here we are out in the meat palace. I've got the first rack. You guys saw me check earlier. Whew, that's hot. And the second rack. So you got some nice bone pullback. Boy, that is hot. You'd think I'd know that by now. Don't quite have the asbestos hands that some of these guys do. But see what I mean about the juice that you get in here? Some terrific pullback. Look at the color on those things. I mean, they just look spectacular. Now, to be honest, what I normally do is just use the juice from here and put them back in there to tack up. But for this video, I'm actually going to do something I don't normally do. I'm going to mix in a little bit of that juice with a raspberry chipotle sauce from Kosmos Q. Yeah, I could have done this in a fancier way. Could have done it in a more efficient way, probably. And yes, I know I'm going to get some crossover to this first rack. My wife likes them without this, so I'm going to go ahead, just brush on some of this glaze. It's actually not glaze, it is a real sauce. I'll show you the bottle in a second once I get this on here. Now, this last step was the one where in the 3-2-1 rib, everybody used to put these things back on for an hour. And this is where everyone ended up overcooking their ribs. Now, there are those who would say that my ribs currently are overcooked because of the bone pullback. My family tends to like ribs a little bit more fall off the bone than you'd have for competition. I'm going to test the temperature right now between the bones. These are at 196, 197 right now. This one's more done. These are over at 203. So this is going to be the one that the family likes. This is going to be the one that's more competition style. We're going to get these back on here. Not for a tremendous amount of time, just about 10 minutes to tack up the glaze. I'm going to flip this guy over, get more of that glaze on the front side. And then we'll go get these ribs off the grill. The complexity of a one-man shoot, what I was saying was, when you're done with the wrap, you can create these little foil boats, almost like the chud boat for the ribs, to keep your cooker clean. Put these back in here. You see the glaze there. You see the sauce here. I'm going to go and use the rest of that sauce it up. These will be in here for 8 to 10 minutes, then we'll pull them off, let them rest, and cut them up. Okay, we're back inside. We've got both our racks of ribs over here. We've got the one that I glazed with the raspberry chipotle Kosmos Q, which is on the top here, and then the one that is not glazed, just using the juices from the actual cook. I'm gonna get this over here, get it on the board, see what we got. So it's funny, when I started doing this, I used to feel terrible. Now see, I told you my family likes it a little bit more done. This bone popped all the way out. That's not what you really want. We ended up with a double rib there, but it's okay. But what I was saying was, I always felt like it was foolish of me that I felt better cutting ribs from the back. Because at the time, no one that I saw on YouTube was doing it, and if I tried to cut these things from the front, you could rest assured I was going to screw it up. And now, it's become sort of the standard. So now I feel like I'm less of a clown when it comes to that. This is rack 1, the way my family likes it. A little bit more done than, oops, fumble, than like what you'd call competition. There's a giant dino bone there. But good looking. Let's take one from the middle to see what we got with regards to the actual cross section. Hopefully that'll be a good picture. Great smoke ring. Looks fantastic. I'll use this guy on the end and take a bite. End up with a nice little chunk of meat in the end. Really good. Just like the family likes it. A little fall off the bone for if you're going to do a competition, though I haven't. But the flavor is spot on. Butters is now over here paying attention, which is usually a good sign. He's a good judge of ribs. I'm going to try and do something like this. Oh, look at that. It's almost like I know what I'm doing. Now we're going to take our rack that I actually glazed. So you got a nice bend on that rib, but it's not breaking. The sheen from the raspberry chipotle. Now I'm going on a cutting board, so we'll see how badly that tears up this nice sheen. Oh, tore that one right off. Son of a gun. Should have got a bigger board. That's all right. Never claimed to be a pro. These ribs smell amazing. This is the first time I've used that raspberry chipotle sauce from Kosmos Q. I had my son taste it. He usually likes those things. He really likes their cherry habanero. But there wasn't enough heat in this one for him, which happens. I hear one of my dogs down here licking the floor. All right, let's get these guys flipped over. This guy tore off his big meaty chunk. You guys heard that when it happened. Not used to dealing with saucy ribs. They're slippery. All right. Let's take one of these guys. Oh, did I not get cut all the way through? I did not make that all the way through. Here we go. Take a look at that guy right there on the cross section. It's another good looking rib. Take this guy off of the cutting table. And let's see if this one gives us our clean bite that you look for in a rib. Wow. That raspberry chipotle is really good. Again, I'm not a huge sauce rib guy, but if I were going to be a sauce rib guy, this would be the kind of sauce I would eat on a rib. Cooked well, great moisture, great smoke. I almost channeled my inner Sam the cooking guy with the paper towels. It was warm outside, folks. Don't get it twisted. Anyway, that's our rib cook, the way I cook ribs. It's a variation of the 3-2-1. 3 hours or so uncovered at 250. I was running Knotty Wood pellets. 2 racks of Costco ribs. Seasoned with Kosmos Q, the normal trio that I have. I'll put that down in the description. Family style, a little bit more fall off the bone. Competition-ish style, a little bit less fall off the bone and sauced. Hopefully you enjoyed the cook. I had a great time doing it for you. If you're enjoying the videos, really would appreciate a like, subscribe, and notification, all that stuff. Apparently that matters to the algorithm. But the reality is I'm just doing this for fun. My kids are going to participate. My son Drew is going to start doing the video work because I suck at it and he's way better at it. But you're going to see more of this stuff as I get more time in the future, and doing some stuff with leftovers as well, because leftover barbecue is certainly slept on. So thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.